what you've done thus far. Hope to do a lot more for you.
You and me both. Thanks. Thanks so much.
I would have one.
Great trip. Thanks for coming. Sorry about that. The Jack. Oh, yeah. Later, it's great to meet you.
Manager of the Red Sox from home in front of the TV.
Manager of the Red Sox from home.
In front of the TV.
In front of the TV. That's high praise coming from you. It really is. Really. Thanks for your great career.
Privilege you're willing.
Thank you so much.
Anyway, anybody. Busy. I don't want to follow up.
Go ahead.
Just involving the father and uncle, the chaplain, the company. Really who needs some help with that project.
Hello, friends.
You have other things.
If you haven't guessed, ding, 12 o'clock, ding, he walks out the door. It's a really good time. I was with another candidate the other day, and he was an hour and a half late. So I came and was like, sorry.
Right.
And you're a traitor for doing that? I don't think so.
Matt Mayberry.
My name is Matt Mayberry. I live in Dover. I've been there for 35 years. Been around for a little bit. Spent a lot of time with presidential candidates, and I chose this guy. I'm an Air Force veteran. I want a strong commander-in-chief. I've been around the world a few times with the military, and I know what it's like to have a strong foreign policy. I don't believe that we should throw our friends under the bus because they're in a different country. We live in a bad world. So I'm going to shut up because I want you to meet my friend, who is an amazing gentleman. I'm going to tell you a little story behind the curtains. This man is the same in the car as he is in a conference room, as he is in front of you. This is a good man. I've spent time with all of them. I need this man to be president. We need this man to be president. One last time. On January 6th, Vice President Mike Pence stood up for all of us and stood up for the Constitution. We gotta bring cookies more often. But he stood up for us on January 6th. So my friends, we need to stand up for him this January 6th. Sure, our primary may be on that day. But I'm gonna stop talking now. My friend, Mike Pence.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Matt. Thank you all for coming out today. I'm delighted to be here in Raymond at the Ray Free Center. How about a big round of applause for the Ray Free team? They've done a fantastic job at this location for 50 years. Making a difference in the lives of seniors all across this community. We just thank you. Thank the board members who are here. We're truly grateful for it. Let me begin at the beginning. I'm Mike Pence. I'm from Indiana, and I'm running for President of the United States of America. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you all for coming out. I want to thank Stanley, the president, Barbara, the treasurer, the whole team that's here. Kim, thank you so very much for, again, all the great work here. I also want to say it's a real privilege to be here to have a chance to meet the former Senate Majority Leader, Jack Barnes. Thank you so much for your great leadership in New Hampshire. In addition to being one of the great leaders in the state Senate here in New Hampshire, he told me he also manages the Red Sox from the chair in his living room watching television. So, Jack, I'm going to carry that. I'm going to carry that line home. I like that line a lot. I really do. And let me also say, I think he's arrived. The Mike LaBelle, the Raymond Chief of Police. Chief, thank you so very much for being with us today. We're really honored to have you here. let me share with you just a big round of applause to the chief. Come on up, chief. Great to see you.
Yes, sir. Thanks for coming around today.
You bet. Give the whole department our very best.
I will. Thank you very much. Thank you, folks.
Really.
Yep.
Great job. Well, let me share just a couple things, and I'd love to hear what's on your mind. We've been traveling over the last couple of days across New Hampshire. We've been traveling all across the country. We announced back in June my intention to seek the Republican nomination for president. Let me tell you why I'm running. A little bit about who I am, and why I'm so optimistic about the future, even in these challenging times. First off, a little bit about who I am. You know, most people know me from my last job as Vice President of the United States. But one of the things I learned after Karen and I moved back to Indiana, I got 5 acres and a pond, bought a riding mower, got a pickup truck. Going back to the grocery store, traveling a little bit around the country, I realized I'm well known, but I don't think I'm known well. Most people know me in that role as Vice President. What you may not know is that I'm a small-town guy from southern Indiana. I grew up in a place not too different from Raymond, New Hampshire. My parents built everything that matters, a family, a business, and a good name. My dad ran gas stations, and so I worked for 5 years to help pay my way through college as a gas station attendant, which for some of the young people in the room will explain later what a gas station attendant was. The dream of my life growing up was someday to represent my hometown in the Congress of the United States. Took me literally 3 tries to do it. By my 40th year, with the support of my incredible wife, with a foundation of faith in our life, we were elected to represent Indiana in Washington, D.C. I served in the Congress for 12 years. It seemed longer, but I was a leader in the Congress of the United States, a leader among conservatives. Oftentimes fought the big spenders in my own political party during those days, but I would eventually be in Republican leadership the first time that we retired Nancy Pelosi. And I couldn't be more grateful for the role New Hampshire played in retiring Nancy Pelosi once and for all. The truth is, from there, I left the Congress voluntarily after 12 years. Went home to be governor of the state of Indiana. A state that, like New Hampshire, actually demonstrates that you can cut taxes and balance budgets. You can have strong reserves. And before I left the office of governor of Indiana, we'd achieved record employment with more Hoosiers working than ever before in our state's history. And then that phone call came from the Republican nominee in 2016. And I have to tell you, I said yes in a heartbeat. I could not imagine putting 8 years of more liberal Democrat governance in the wake of the failed policies of the Obama administration. And let me just say at the outset, I want to thank the people of New Hampshire for your support and your prayers. It was the greatest honor of my life to serve as your vice president. And I want to thank you for your support. In 4 short years, we rebuilt our military. We revived our economy through tax cuts, rolled back regulation. We unleashed American energy. We became energy independent for the first time in 75 years. We secured the southern border of the United States, and we appointed 3 conservatives to our Supreme Court. More than 300 conservatives to our courts at every level that gave us a new beginning for life. Beyond all that, in my political career, all you need to know about me is that I've been married to an incredible school teacher. Karen spent 30 years in the classroom, 15 in a Christian school, 15 in public school. She's got a book coming out next month, which you can read all about my wife. She's got an incredible personal story. Came up through some challenging times in her upbringing, but she's gone on to be an incredible person. 38 years, my wife, but more importantly, Karen Pence was the best second lady the United States of America has ever had. I'm incredibly proud of her. Most important things in our lives are really our family and our faith. In the family category, I'm the father of a captain in the United States Marine Corps. Proud to say my son will be leaving for Top Gun at the end of this week. He's a fighter pilot. And I met the commandant a few years back at the Top Gun, the base in Fallon, Nevada. And I'll never forget the commander of the base looked at me and he said, it's not like the movie. But we're incredibly proud of our son. Our daughter is a best-selling author. She and I just finished another book together, but she writes for an outfit called the Daily Wire and is actually on the air with the Morning Wire every day. And One of my unworthy son-in-laws, her husband, is he's actually also a fighter pilot in the United States Navy. He's a lieutenant in the United States Navy. We're proud of him. Our youngest is a working prosecutor, married to a great young guy who was the first civilian employee of the United States Space Force. But beyond all of our kids, the best thing that's happened to us in all of these 38 years, I think, is the fact that we've seen over the last 2 years the birth of not one, not two, but three of the most beautiful granddaughters ever born in the history of the world. Not that I'm biased. But I don't know the rest of you had the privilege of being grandparents, but it's a new experience for Karen and me. And we finally realized that we had kids so we could have grandkids. Those three granddaughters have been the light of our lives. Which gets me to kind of why I'm running. You know, I mean, frankly, our life's been pretty good the last 2.5 years. Yeah. A little less hectic than those 4 years at the White House. A little less busy than the years that preceded it. But I have to tell you, I think Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. I think this country's in a lot of trouble. And when I think about all the experiences that we've had, the American people have given us the opportunity to learn about leadership in the Congress, to learn about leadership at the state level, and to serve as your vice president. I just couldn't sit this one out. And I truly do believe in what the old book says, that to whom much is given, much will be required. And our family's been given so much in this country. I felt it's one of those moments, Jack, where I think everybody that has the ability to turn this country around has a responsibility to step forward and try. And that's why I'm running for President of the United States of America. And I'd be grateful for your support. And I believe we can bring it all back. I really do. If we'll simply hew to our roots of a commitment to a strong national defense, to American leadership in the world, if we'll commit ourselves to fiscal responsibility, we'll tackle that national debt that threatens our children and grandchildren's very well-being and prosperity. We'll get this economy moving again. We can secure our border, and we can defend our liberties with the right appointments to our courts at every level. But it's going to take all of us to do it. But I have confidence because I have faith in all of you. I must tell you, we only did 3 events yesterday here in New Hampshire. So it was a slow day. But I'm just so inspired, Jack, by getting to know people all across New Hampshire. I better understand the way that people of New Hampshire have taken ownership of your responsibility in shaping our nation's leadership. I know you'll do it again. I'm running because I believe we need new leadership in the White House, but I also believe we need new leadership in the Republican Party. Yes. Amen. Different times call for different leaders. And I really do believe that the challenges that we're facing now at home and abroad, in the wake of that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan that's emboldened the enemies of freedom around the world. Wars raging in Eastern Europe, and now China continues to threaten in the Asian Pacific. That avalanche of spending by the Biden administration that literally has set into motion the worst inflation in 40 years. Mortgage rates at 22-year high. 2 out of 3 American families living paycheck to paycheck. And then the steady assault on our values and on the important primary role of parents in raising our kids and educating our kids. The American people are ready for a change. And I know the people of New Hampshire are going to give us a standard bearer fitted to the times. So I'm here to tell you my story, tell you why I'm running. But I'll tell you what, I have faith in the future because I have faith in all of you. And at the heart of our family, I often tell people I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican in that order. And I must tell you, the decision I made to put my faith in Jesus Christ as a freshman in college, I hope has been the defining decision of my life. I don't consider myself any more than a growing Christian. If you have any doubt about that, you can ask my wife. She'll feel yet. It's still got a long way to go, Jack. But the truth is, I really do believe that in this moment, if we'll just renew our faith in each other, and renew our faith in Him that's ever guided this miracle of democracy since the Pilgrims first landed on our wilderness shores, that the best days for the greatest nation on earth are yet to come. So help us God. Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be with you all. And I'd love to hear what's on your mind. If you'd share with me your first name, I'd love it. Please call me Mike, and we'll jump to whoever. I got one guy, hand in the air. Let's start here with this young man, then we'll go to you. Yes, ma'am. Did you want to start?
No, this young man.
Okay, good. I'm ready to go. Go ahead, and then you're next.
77, so anyway, I feel young. I camp at Pawtuckaway, if you've seen the signs. I go kayaking, whatever. Anyway, so this is my favorite home spot, just to see some of these people.
That's
Anyway,
great.
question.
How about another round of applause for Ray Free? He just said it's his favorite spot.
Hey, we got their calendar, right? There's something going on all the time.
That's great.
Anyway, so question about why you think Trump selected you as vice president. I'm sure you've had time to think about that. I mean, I have my own opinions, but why do you think he selected you?
Well, the question is, why do I think Donald Trump selected me to be his running mate? And you'll have to ask him next time he's through New Hampshire. But I will tell you, we had a great working relationship for 4 years. Didn't end the way I wanted it to. But I know by God's grace I did my duty on that day. But I really do believe I'm going to give a speech tomorrow at St. Ansel on the decision that I think Republican primary voters are facing. Because I think back in 2016, and it may have contributed his decision to choose me, is Donald Trump very much promised to govern as a conservative. And by choosing me, someone that had been involved in the conservative movement literally since the days of Ronald Reagan, it may have been an affirmation of that. And I'm proud to say we did govern as conservatives. And whether it be with regard to a strong military, American leadership in the world, low taxes, low-cost energy, conservatives on our courts, we did that. But I think we're involved in a very important debate in the Republican primary today. I'll speak about it in more detail tomorrow. But today, I think both Donald Trump and some of his imitators in the Republican primary make no such promise. I mean, in a very real sense, there's talk today of walking away from our role as leader of the free world and the arsenal of democracy. And Joe Biden's policy on the national debt is insolvency. He won't even talk about the major drivers of government spending. And frankly, Donald Trump and others that vie for this nomination have the same policy as Joe Biden, walking away from a commitment to fiscal responsibility and even discussing reform. And on the subject of values, I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. There are those that want to relegate the question of life now to the states only, when I believe the Supreme Court returned the question of life to the states and the American people. And if I'm President of the United States, I'm going to be a leader for life in the Oval Office. And so I believe, thank you, I believe that now we have a choice our party is facing, whether we're going to produce leadership that is grounded in that timeless conservative agenda that's defined our movement for more than 50 years, or whether we're going to follow the siren song of populism and move our party away from those same principles. But I promise you, if I'm the Republican nominee, if I'm President of the United States, we're not just going to lead the Republican Party to victory in 2024. We're going to lead America back to that common sense, conservative American agenda that's always made America strong and prosperous and free. That's my promise to you. Okay? That's great. Who's way in the back? Then we'll come. Eric.
Hi, my name is Shirley Ann. The question I have for you, if Donald Trump gets the nomination, would you support him?
Well, that's what you call a hypothetical. And it's a good one. It's a real good one. Let me tell you, I really do believe we're going to have different leadership in the Republican Party. Everywhere I go, people come up to me and thank me for running. And I think Labor Day just passed by yesterday, and I think now you all in New Hampshire, I'm at least told, now you start to really drill down and ask the hard questions. And so let me just tell you, I'm going to support the Republican nominee for President of the United States, and I'm going to work my heart out over the next year to make sure that it's me. Okay? God bless you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Perhaps you've heard the song, Papa Don't Preach, where she's saying, I'm keeping my baby. That runs head on into, in this house, you'll do as you're told, we're taking you to the abortion clinic next Friday, period. If she finds another place to live at the ripe old age of 15, the cops will return her across the state line even, back to her parents. how would you feel about making the District of Columbia a safe haven for such a pregnant runaway, and maybe birthright.org would find her a home where she could stay, and under District of Columbia law, her parents would not be able to get her returned. And this would be not only pro-life, but it would also be pro-choice, because the 15-year-old girl is choosing life.
Well, I want to affirm any decision by any young person to choose life. But with regard to your idea, I'm not sure I quite track on it. But let me just speak about this issue broadly. As I said before, I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. When I was a member of Congress, I introduced the first legislation to defund the largest abortion provider in America. When I was governor of Indiana, I also introduced adoption reform. I think you can't be pro-life if you're not pro-adoption. I mean, I believe in forever families through adoption. Karen and I, when we went through 5 years of infertility, waiting for our first child to come, we actually put in for adoption. And frankly, it may shock you to know that right now, the average cost of adoption in America is about $70,000. Men and women, we ought to create structures in our tax codes and in states around the country that make adoption available for every family in America. I also believe on this issue that while I'll always champion the cause of life, I think it's important that we have equal portions of compassion with the principle of defending the unborn. And I believe the progress that we made over the last 50 years was certainly through electing pro-life leaders at every level, certainly through the prayers of millions of people that cherish the unborn in this country. But I also believe it was from the compassion that was shown at crisis pregnancy centers around America, here in New Hampshire and all across the country, that the way volunteers came alongside women facing crisis pregnancies and generously supported them and newborns with resources and encouragement, and so for my part, as we move forward on this issue as a nation, I want you to know that I'll be a leader. I'll be a leader for the sanctity of life. It comes from the depth of my convictions and, frankly, the depth of my faith, where the Bible that I read says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And while you were formed in the hidden place, I saw you." And so it comes from a place of faith for me, but so does my commitment to compassion, to coming alongside women that are facing crisis pregnancies and saying, we're going to be there for you. I think we need to care as much for newborns as we do for the unborn. And that's the approach that I would take to these issues going forward. Yes, sir, please.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, for being here today.
Great. It's Mike, by the way. You call me Mike.
We might not all be here today if it hadn't been for your integrity and your courage. And for that, we all have to thank you. My family left Cuba 62 years ago. So I certainly know what tyranny and communism can be like. And on that day, I said to my wife, this is scary. It's happening all over again. My question to you is, sir, this morning on CNN, again, Donald Trump ahead by 42 points. You were with the most of them at 4%. What can you do to differentiate yourself from the likes of a Donald Trump?
Well, what did Indiana Jones say? Never tell me the odds. Right, look, I'm running because I think this country's in a lot of trouble, and I believe in my heart of hearts that I am the most qualified, the best prepared, the most tested, the most proven conservative running for President of the United States in the Republican primary. That's one run. And that's the message we're going to continue to bring. And thank you. I'm very humbled by your earlier comments. I admire your family greatly. And I want you to know, que viva Cuba Libre. We'll never give up. We'll never give up on freedom in Cuba. But I really believe that. Look, and it's early. You know, this isn't my first rodeo. You know, I was elected 6 times to Congress, 1 time as governor, and 1 time as vice president. I mean, these things take a little bit of time, and I'm going to go out there. I'm going to work my heart out. I promise you. My dad, I got a job at that gas station I mentioned when I was growing up, and my dad was part of the ownership at the company that owned a group of gas stations. And I got a job. I was maybe 16 years old, pumping gas. Had a marathon on this side of my shirt. Had the name Mike stitched into this side of my shirt. These young people that are here, gas station attendant used to run out to the car, used to wash the windshield, fill it with gas, check the tires, check the oil, not charge you anymore for it, right? And those were the days, right? But I'll never forget when I first got that job this relates to your question. When I first got that job at Ray's Marathon Station, I noticed, I came home one night, my dad said to me, he goes, "How's it going at the station?" I said, "Well, you know, I don't think the mechanics like me very much." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, they aren't very friendly to me." I said, "I think they think I just got the job there because I'm your son," which of course was true, right? And I said, and he goes, "I know how you fix that." And I said, "How's that, Dad?" And he said, "Outwork them." And I said, "Outwork them?" And he said, "Yeah, just go outwork them. And they'll respect you if they see you're actually earning it." Right? So I went back to the station the next day, and nobody hustled more than I did. Nobody ran faster to the cars. I volunteered to clean the restrooms. I'd scrub the bays at the end of the day. A couple weeks went by, and frankly, a number of those mechanics are still good friends of mine to this day. I see them from time to time in my hometown. I mean, I promise you, if you ask me how we're going to make it in this Republican primary, we're going to outwork them, all right? We're going to carry our message all across the Granite State, and we're going to bring home a victory for the American people. Thank you. Yes, sir.
What would be your reaction to replacing the progressive income tax with a national sales tax?
I've been very open to a broad base of tax reform. I've expressed support for a flat tax before that would move away from the progressive income tax that we have today. A national sales tax is another similar concept, as long as you have a very strong rebate so that people, the first $20,000 in purchases by Americans are essentially tax-free. But I will tell you, I'm incredibly proud of the tax cuts that we enacted during the Trump-Pence years. I mean, 7 million good-paying jobs, wages rising at the fastest pace that they had in 10 years. 12,000 factories were reopened and jobs brought back to the United States during our 4 years because we cut taxes on individuals and we cut taxes on businesses in America. Now, the thing that you don't necessarily know is, unless you have a Republican president and a Republican House and Senate in 2025, most of those tax cuts are going to go away. I mean, we used a budget mechanism to pass them by 51 votes that puts a time limit on it. And so, job one for me is going to be jobs if I become president of the United States. And the first thing we're going to do is not only make those Trump-Pence tax cuts permanent, but I want to see if we can go stronger on reducing taxes on working families, small businesses, family farms, but also see if we can lower that business tax rate to attract even more investment back to New Hampshire and back to the United States. But I'm a big believer in that old adage. Jack Kemp was a friend of mine, right? He's one of my heroes politically. You may remember Jack Kemp real well. I actually dye my hair to look more like Jack Kemp. But Jack said one time, he said, "All I know about tax policy is what you tax, you get less of. What you subsidize, you get more of." Right? So I want to see if we can even do more tax reform that will invite more investment in the United States, create more jobs, and make it more possible for more American families to live on one income if they desire to do just that. Okay? We'll get back to it. Yes, ma'am.
If you're elected president, will you continue to support the current Medicare negotiations to reduce prescription drugs?
Well, the question is about Medicare negotiations to reduce prescription drugs. What I would tell you is two things. On the broader issue, we'll make it clear that when it comes to Social Security and Medicare, that we're going to keep our promises to seniors. Okay? In fact, I want to make it clear, anybody over the age of 40, we're not going to change the program at all. But where I'm different from a number of people in this race, including my former running mate and some others who say that the issue of the national debt is somebody else's problem, some other president's problem, I want to have a conversation with younger Americans, okay, about how we can reform these programs to preserve them for seniors and near seniors today, but preserve them for them in the future by taking this like New Deal program of Social Security and giving people a better deal, right? And so we can talk about that a whole lot. With regard to Medicare prescription drugs, I will tell you that I never want anybody to ever be choosing between food and rent and medicine. I never want that to happen in this country. And I've held that position for a very long time. My concern about what the Biden administration wants to do with Medicare, with regard to the 10 medications that were announced in the last week, is when you introduce price controls into any economic environment, you invariably create scarcity, and you invariably will dry up the kind of resources for research and development that are going to create the new medicines, and also make it possible for seniors at the point of the need to have the discounts that are available in a certain measure today for people that struggle with the cost of prescription drugs. So I want to be very careful about anything that looks like price controls. We tried that, remember, on gasoline. You're not old enough to remember, but I am, back in the 70s. We tried price controls before. Next thing you know, you got long lines at the gas stations, right? And scarcity happens. So what I want to do is encourage investment in new medicines. I want to make sure that we're encouraging pharmaceutical companies to provide the kind of discounts for people at the point of the need, that Medicare acknowledges that on a means test basis for individuals. But I want to avoid the kind of top-down socialist approach that says we'll solve this problem by imposing from government, a one-size-fits-all set of price controls that I think ultimately will I think it'll suppress the kind of research and development that's created, the kind of life-saving drugs that our families experience and depend on today. It's a great question, though. What a great group of questions. Jack?
I've got a couple of questions for you.
Just one, please, from me. Just one. I'm kidding. No.
The first question is, what are we going to do about our military? I think we're having a problem growing our military. I think our military is the most important thing we might have. So how are we going to handle that as the president? Second question is, and maybe it's an unfair one, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What do you think of Senator Tim Scott? I happen to think he's got a story to tell.
Well, Tim Scott's a very close friend of mine. So I have nothing but good things to say about Senator Tim Scott. I actually met Tim Scott when he was a state legislator, Jack. You might be proud to know that. I was campaigning for a friend who was running for governor of South Carolina. And Tim showed up at an event. He walked up to me. He'd seen me on cable TV. This was about 12 years ago. And he walked up to me at the event. He said, "I'm Tim Scott. I'm a state representative." And he said, "I admire you because I'm a man of faith like you are, and I'm a conservative." And he remembers me looking at him saying, "Well, I'm for you." And I was proud to see him run for Congress, proud to see him appointed, now elected to the United States Senate. He's a great, great friend. We have a few differences on issues. That's fine. Little differences in our professional experience, but I can't say enough good things about him. On the military, I love you putting a focus on that. It doesn't surprise me coming from you, Jay. Look, when we came in the Trump-Pence years, I learned very quickly that there were aircraft in the Air Force that were on the ground being used as spare parts to keep other aircraft in the air. Literally, about a fourth of our fleet in the Air Force was grounded because we weren't supplying. So one of the things we did, we made the largest increase in military spending in the Trump-Pence years that had happened since the days of Ronald Reagan. We rebuilt our military after years of unilateral budget cuts in Washington, D.C. Now, the thing that you may not know right now is if that recent debt ceiling deal that they did with the Congress and with President Biden, if they don't get all of their spending bills passed, it requires a 1% cut in military spending in 2025. I mean, look, China is floating a new battleship every month in the Asia Pacific. I mean, they're increasing spending. They haven't caught up with us yet, but they're on a trajectory. Our spending is like this, their spending is like this. Those lines are going to cross. And we can't let that happen. So I tell people, and this isn't just because I'm the son of a combat veteran, Karen's dad was Air Force, and we got a Marine and a naval aviator in the family. I will tell you, I think our challenge going forward is not to rebuild the military, although the Biden administration has been working hard to cut the military since they came in. I think we have to build a military fitted to the challenges of the 21st century, Jack. I mean, I think and this is part of the reason why we got to get the national debt under control. It was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff 10 years ago before Congress that was asked, what's the greatest threat to our national security in the 21st century? And his answer was, the national debt. I mean, next year we're going to spend as much on interest on the national debt as we do on military spending. In fact, those rising interest rates, believe it or not, the Biden administration just announced the deficit this year, it's not going to be $1 trillion, it's going to be $2 trillion. That's not just on the backs of our grandkids, but frankly, it really threatens our ability to have the kind of military that we need. To have peace through strength, which is the issue. I want a military that's so strong that it will deter the enemies of freedom in the world, right? And I'm someone that believes that we've got to rethink. We've got to have a 350-ship Navy. We've got to look at a major investment in our armed forces at every level. And we're going to be coming out with a specific plan to do that. But again, it's not about, when we came in 6 years ago, it was about rebuilding the military. Now we've got to build a military fitted to the challenges of the 21st century. I promise you I'll do it, Jack. I promise you.
We have time for two more questions.
Two more questions. Yes, sir. Hi.
On that.
Yeah, thanks.
The question has two parts to it, but they're related. I voted for you, by the way, in 2020 as a write-in, so I'm looking forward to voting for you for real this time.
Thank you.
I'm responding to your comments about Republican leadership and your current understanding of leaders in the Republican party. What's ahead for them when you win, and what's ahead for them if you should not win and the opposite party should win? So what is your understanding of where we are as a Republican Party in terms of leadership?
Yeah.
Well, Ed, thank you. I look forward to being on the ballot, waiting for that vote again here in New Hampshire. Thank you very much. I'm honored by that. Look, as I said, and we'll take a peek at my remarks tomorrow at St. Anselm. I think we're involved in a very important debate. Number one, the country's in a lot of trouble. Joe Biden, as I said, has weakened America at home and abroad. That's why I'm standing in front of you as a candidate, believing that this is a time when those of us that have the ability to restore this country, know what needs to be done, know who you would do it with, have a responsibility to come forward. But we also have a very important philosophical debate within the party. It's a debate over whether or not we're going to continue to be a mainstream conservative party, or whether we're going to, as I say, follow the siren song of populism away from those time-honored principles. Now, I believe the vast majority of Republican primary voters, frankly, I believe the majority of Americans believe in a strong national defense. They believe in fiscal responsibility. They believe in respect for family and traditional values. I think those are not just Republican ideals. I think they're broad, mainstream, common sense American ideals. And I'm going to be a champion of those things. But there are different voices in our party, but that's why we have elections, right? Now, with regard to if we don't prevail, I would tell you that if we steer our party away from fiscal responsibility, if we steer our party away from American leadership in the world, we steer our party away from a defense of traditional values at every level, I think we will begin to become more like what we want to replace, right? And I always say, you give voters a choice between a Democrat and a Democrat, they'll choose a Democrat every time. Right? So I don't want a party that's Republican in name only. I joined this party. I was a Democrat when Ronald Reagan became president. And I listened to the voice of our 40th president. I listened to those ideals. They were the ideals I was raised to believe in by that combat veteran and that precocious first-generation Irish-American redhead who's 90 years young to this day. Went to see my mom on Sunday. She's unstoppable. I can tell you're the same type. But I joined the Republican Party because of the set of principles, common sense, conservative principles. And I promise you, we're going to fight to defend those principles, keep them at the heart of the Republican Party. Not just because it means victory for the Republican Party, but because it is the pathway forward to a stronger, more prosperous, and more secure America. That's why we're going to fight for it. And we're going to win. Yes, ma'am.
It's a comment. I want to say that first time I ever met you, well, not in person, sort of, but you had only been in the White House a few weeks, and you came to speak at the National Right to Life rally, and everybody kept saying, he'll never show up because of Trump and all the horrible things that were going on, and you did. And up in the back, there were men with rifles walking all around, guarding you, and you spoke beautifully. And I just want everybody to know that from the get-go, you got courage.
Well, God's grace. But thank you. I remember that day. March for Life in Washington, D.C. on the National Mall. It's a beautiful day. My wife was with me. My daughter was with me.
Yes, they were.
And I was the first vice president to ever speak at a March for Life. And it was my great honor to be there. It truly was. Can I tell you how that came about?
Sure.
True story. So the president generally, since Ronald Reagan was in the White House, the president has addressed the crowd, but from long distance, maybe over the phone, maybe a recording. And so I was standing in the Oval Office, and Chief of Staff to the new president told him that he had a conflict, that Prime Minister of England was going to be there. So he said, you won't be able to attend. And I could tell the president, he said, we'll record something, we'll send it. I was standing next to the desk, and I looked at him with the March for Life just a few days later, and I said, well, they invited me too. And he looked up at me from the desk and said, they invited you to speak? And I said, yes. And he said, do you want to go? And I said, well, I've been many times when I was in Congress, and I think once as a governor. And to his credit, he said, well, you should definitely go. And so we were proud to be there, proud to stand there. And he would continue that tradition just a few short years later. I couldn't be more proud to have been a part of the most pro-life administration in American history. And whatever the Lord has for me in the future, whatever the people of New Hampshire have for me in the future, I'll always be a champion for the right to life.
Jack says we have one more question from him.
Yes, ma'am. Can I give you the microphone?
What are you going to do about the immigration problem?
It's a great question. Number one, we're going to secure the southern border of the United States of America. First, I got asked last night, I was with former Ambassador Scott Brown for a little backyard barbecue with 100 people or so. Somebody asked me there, though, they said, well, how are you going to secure the southern border? I said, the way we did before. Look, we reduced illegal immigration and asylum abuse in our administration by 90%. We got funding after 2018. We got funding to build a wall. We built hundreds of miles of border wall. Joe Biden shut that down on day one. I've been down to the border 4 times, which I think is 4 times more than the current vice president's been down there. And it would appall you to see these giant gaps in our border wall. And laying on the ground outside those gaps are literally what appears to be miles of steel girders rusting in the sunshine. Because on day one of the Biden administration, President Biden shut down construction of the border wall incomprehensibly. Secondly, he's been dismantling the Remain in Mexico policy that I actually negotiated for our administration with the Mexicans. It required people, if you're applying for asylum, to wait outside the country for your hearing. And when we did that, asylum abuse virtually vanished overnight. And lastly, we used Title 42, where we could return people back across the border immediately once COVID struck. But Joe Biden, since he came in, dismantled all of those policies. And I would submit to you, we can put all those things back into effect, and you'll secure the southern border of the United States. But where I go next is where a lot of Republican candidates aren't going. And that is, I think the time has come for us to fix this broken immigration system once and for all. All right, we've been jawboning it for 20 years, right? And here's my idea. And it comes from the past. So my grandfather grew up in Ireland, a little town called Tubbercurry. 2-room house. I visited it when I was a young man, thatch roof. 1923, stepped off a boat onto Ellis Island. Richard Michael Cawley, it was where Michael Richard Pence got his name. Okay? In fact, my grandfather, who I was very close with, said to me a few years before he died that I was the only Irishman born in our family. I'm still not sure what that means. Might have been the gift of the gab. I did kiss the Blarney Stone a couple of times. But you know, when my grandfather came to the country, and maybe this is true of some of your families, my grandfather actually had to earn a recognized professional credential in a specific area where there was a quota for people to come into the country. In his case, he had to train as a tailor, a clothes maker, because there was a certain quota of people in each of these various professions that then would be allowed into the country if you essentially fit that bill, right? And so I think we ought to have a merit-based immigration system in this country, instead of the incoherent system we have today that's largely based on family connections and the rest. And we ought to say, look, what are the needs in New Hampshire? What are the needs in Rochester? What are the needs in Indiana and in Indianapolis? And we ought to say, who do we need to work in the city and on the farm? What professionals do we need? And then we ought to open the gates of America to legal immigration that will support a growing American economy. That's how my grandfather came here. Now, he ended up going to Chicago and driving a bus for 40 years and raised that precocious redhead who still thinks she's raising me today. But I would tell you, I think that's the key to fixing the... First, you secure the border, and we can. And we stop the flow of illegal immigration, but we also stop the flow of fentanyl that's claiming lives in every community in New Hampshire, and frankly, claiming lives in every community in this country. And then once you do that, then if you have a leader who understands how Congress works and how it doesn't work, who knows the people, who understands the role of states, who understands how an administration functions, then we can engage the American people with a new vision for immigration. And that, to me, is an idea whose time has come. And I promise you, if I'm President of the United States, we'll secure the border and we'll fix this broken immigration system once and for all. Let me thank you all. Let me say to each and every one of you, this has been a joy. I see some of you grabbed a copy of my book. I'd be honored to sign it for you. I'm also available for selfies afterwards. I'm going to shake every hand in the place. I want to thank the Ray Free team for opening up this great place. 50 years, such a critical part of the community. We're grateful to each and every one of you on the board and on the staff. And the rest of you, if you want more information on us, these brochures will tell you how to reach us, MikePence2024.com. You can get all the detail you want. But let me say once again, I'll end where I began. I'm Mike Pence. I'm from Indiana. I'm running for President of the United States of America, and I'd be honored to have your support. Thank you all very much, and God bless you.
Friends? Jack, I'll get your yard signs. So, Mike, what a coincidence. You have a book, they have a library. Perfect addition. Absolutely. And so it's one where, friends, now you know why...
For dollars, so don't let them sell it. Don't sell.
But friends, now you know why I support this gentleman to be president. Character is the thing that you do when no one is looking. And this man has it. So, thank you once again. Please get involved. Please let me know how we can help. And Have a good day. Got some cookies.